start talking.
Gigi! Papa! Settle down Lollipop, it's a sweet trip to the candy.
I've got something special, honey, only for you. Follow me, be quiet.
Please to record. So today is Gingerbread Day, and I know that you probably thought I was going to say make a gingerbread house, which you can if you would like to. You can use some graham crackers and some icing and some candy and make me an awesome gingerbread house. But I also thought this would be a good opportunity to teach you guys about some shading. So I'm going to use a paper bag to make a little standing gingerbread house to leave in Miss Vineyard's room for the math lesson tomorrow. And we're gonna work on doing some shading to make it look more realistic. So I'm just gonna give you some different tips and hints, and you can make yours however you like. If you don't have a paper bag, you can use a piece of construction paper. You can use a piece of scratch paper. On the white, you can see, even on this one, even though there's white in the snow, they've still done some different shading so that you can kind of see some of the different shadows in the snow. So the first thing I'm going to do to kind of start to make the top of my house is that I'm going to, first I'm going to fold this back the right way, then, and I'm going to probably have to zoom in at some point, but to get you started, you should be able to, as long as you're not using white paper, you should be able to make the top of your house using a white crayon. So because I'm going to eventually be cutting this out and making it shorter, I'm not going to worry about using the whole entire bag. I'm just going to use part of it. So I'm going to make my outline, and then just like my drawing, I'm going to kind of make just a rough little scalloped bubble along the bottom. But then here's where it gets important. I'm not going to do my white swirls through the bottom of it yet. Instead, I'm going to take, I didn't grab the right blue color here. I'm going to take my blue to try to get some of the shadows along the bottom first. So I'm just going to lightly shade in the bottom half of my snow. If you remember when we did the op art, I explained and kind of gave you the hint that you always want to start light and then build up. So I have my lightest layer already. It's really kind of hard to see when you're far away, but you can kind of see a light layer of blue there. Okay, but then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to darken it up. I'm going to do kind of another layer, and then I'm going to go over my layer a little bit along the bottom edge closest to my white outline to really make the snow a little bit more three-dimensional. And then after you've kind of done that to get your darkest at the bottom to create that bottom shading, then you're going to go back in with your white over the top and kind of almost color and draw and fill in kind of a swirl pattern. All right, so there's the shading to kind of help you make your roof part more three-dimensional, make your icing, I should say, more three-dimensional. But then I'm gonna go back in over the top and create kind of a swirl pattern. So I'm drawing in a circular motion. And I'm gonna go back over this a couple of times because I really want my white at the top to pop, but I'm also doing my circular pattern over my blue shading. That's gonna help that kind of be more three-dimensional as well. All right, then I'm gonna go back over my top part. I might do some circles in the other direction because you really want the top to be your whitest white. That's where your light would hit. So that's gonna be the brightest part of your roof. All All right, so then the next part, so there's that. See my swirls that I have going through there? So then the next part's going to be to start making the sides of the house. And let me show you this one again. When I look at this one up close, you can see that really that shading is made up of just dots all along the edge. So I'm gonna try to mimic that. I'm gonna get my sides first. I did just notice one other thing that I forgot. So here are my sides in orange. But I also noticed as I'm looking up close at the other one, they've created a shadow at the bottom as well. So I'm gonna try to find, got a big old bin of crayons in here instead of grabbing a package today. So I may not have all the colors with me. I'm gonna try to find a black crayon to do some shadow below or kind of underneath. Oh, here we go. All right, so I only have the square, and that's okay, because we don't always have everything we need. Sometimes we just have to figure it out and make do. I'm going to create a shadow underneath my roof overhang here. And again, you want it to be darkest right where your surface and kind of your overhang meet. So it's going to be, that's going to be kind of the darkest spot, and then it's going to fade out from there. And what I think I'm going to do, because this isn't a very sharp crayon, I'm going to go back in with my blue after that and just fade in a little bit more of the darker blue. I may also, to just kind of bring a hint of that blue out in my shadow here, I might grab like a purple and do a little bit of that edge where the two colors meet, almost in like a purple. And that white I did pretty hard, so it's kind of creating a little bit darker of a white line there. I should have done this under shadow first. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go kind of around the edge of the house with the dots. Now, as we talked about last year and a little bit this year with value, when your dots are bigger or when they're closer together, it's going to appear darker. So my edges are gonna be a little bit darker than the middle of my gingerbread house. So I'm going to put my dots a little bit closer together on the edge or around the edge, and then they're gonna fade and be a little bit more sporadic and far apart as you get in closer towards the middle. Now, the next part I'm gonna do is the window. I'm gonna do the window before I do this next level at the bottom because I want the window to stand out. So I'm gonna start with white again. And we're almost making it a Gothic style window, kind of like we did on American Gothic. And instead of the point at the top though, it has more of a rounded top. So I'm gonna start light because I can always go darker. So I've got my arch, and then it looks like I'm gonna go ahead and make my line a little off the middle, but that's okay. I'm gonna make a line across here, and then I'm gonna kind of make my orange slices at the top. On my picture I'm looking off of, they've kind of got 4 circles here, but they've got the window panes crisscross through the middle. So again, I'm gonna make my darkest points. I'm gonna kind of create that, the window itself, that's gonna be my brightest white. And then kind of the edges of my window, the frame of it is also gonna be a little bit brighter white. But then I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna use my same blue that I used along the edge of my house up here. And I'm going to kind of start shading in. So I'm gonna do a little light blue across the whole empty space of each of these windows. And then I'm gonna go back and do a second layer kind of along the bottom to kind of create that 3-dimensional effect again in the edges of the window. So I'm darkening it up a little bit along that side. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the same thing through each of these little triangular spots. I'm gonna color them lightly first. And then I'm gonna go back and brighten it up along. I'm gonna go along the same edge of each of them since the light would be technically hitting them all the same way. All right, so I've got that now. I'm gonna do a little bit of my back shadow. Not a ton of this blue color, but I do want a little bit of it kind of coming off to help make the edges of the white part of your window pop. So I'm gonna lightly go around the edge with that. Starting to get a little bit more three-dimensional here. And then I'm gonna go in with a black, kind of like I did on this one. And I'm going to choose the opposite. I'm still going from the top, but I'm gonna kind of choose the opposite side, and I'm gonna make some black lines to kind of show the reflection of the glass on the windows. And with crayon, it's hard to get super tiny definition, but that's okay. Crayons are a lot easier to kind of blend and build up. Starting to look a little more three-dimensional. Then I'm gonna go along the edge of my window over here to make my window pop. It's gonna be darkest where the window and the surface of the house meet, and it's gonna get lighter as it goes farther away. I'm gonna do that all the way around the window. Darkest where my white part of my window's edge meets the gingerbread of the house, the brown of the gingerbread house. But as you start to add those details in, up close, kind of just looks like I scribbled. But when you get it far away and you start to squint at it, you start to see that it looks a lot more three-dimensional. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of follow that same pattern that I did on my top. I'm not gonna bore you with going through that part in the video. I'm just gonna help you get the outline, and then I want you to follow the same kind of idea that we did up here. So create your outline almost like a cloud of your icing, and then you're gonna go in and you're going to do your blue shading through here first, and then you're gonna go over all of it with white. After that, we'll come in and we'll do some shading along the edges of it to really make it pop. Be back in just a minute. Done. I went back in with my black and my blue actually and kind of did another little layer along the edges here to kind of help my window pop a little bit more. I'm also gonna go in with kind of a purplish blue color to create a little bit of a shadow from the icing on the top part of this cloud of icing. And I'm gonna go up my edges just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm gonna take a blue, but you could take whatever color. You could take black if you wanted. I'm gonna take my blue across the top, or kind of through the middle here. This is gonna kind of be where my graham cracker divide is. And I'm gonna make just some little lines going up, almost like lines of a ruler, to kind of be where my graham cracker is. Gonna add a little scalloped edge here, just to add some extra pizzazz. But then I'm also gonna go in and just like we did some shading with using dots with the orange, I'm gonna go in with my blue and I'm gonna create some more dots. Just one to create kind of the texture of the graham crackers that you would be using if you were making the gingerbread house. But also, again, when you make them close together, it appears darker, and then you make them farther apart and it starts to lighten it up. So I'm gonna add a few more of my little graham cracker dots in here. All right, so I've kind of got the top part of my house done. Now, on to the bottom, and this is where I think it's gonna be a little more fun to do the bottom. I'm gonna draw out my door first. So I'm gonna do another arch. I didn't leave a ton of room for the snow, but again, I'm gonna do my icing around my door the same way I've done all my other clouds. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that first, just so I can see where it's going to be. And then I'm gonna line out my trees. Now, I didn't leave very much space for my trees, but I'm gonna do them just like I talked about doing them the other day with the watercolor and the crayon resist. You can either do a straight up triangle. I'm gonna kind of do an arched, almost Gothic style triangle for my trees this time. I'm going to go ahead and do my scallop to create my branches and my different layers through here. And I'm doing my white pretty hard. And then I'm also going to go ahead and kind of do some gumdrops along the front of my house. And we'll go back in and we'll shade those in just a minute. So for the white, I want snow on top. I'm going to have pretty solid white. And we're going to come in with just some green kind of highlights this time. I'm going to do the same thing. My darkest white, I want my edges of my branches to all be snowy and white. So I'm going to go over those layers several times. And then I'm going to go back in with my green to kind of start to create some of that shading. Now you'll notice all of our colors are kind of muted when we do this, but by using that white and then using really bright colors, we're really making it pop off of that background paper. Okay, so then for my tree, I'm gonna get a couple different colors of green here. I'm gonna have my lightest green, and I'm gonna kind of shade that all along one side. So I'm gonna go on my left side with my light green color. I'm gonna do that on the side of both trees. And then I'm gonna come in with my darker green, and I'm gonna go do that one on the sides on the other side. And I'm gonna go a little, you can go a little over halfway so that they overlap just a little bit. So I would say this one's kind of actually more of like a medium green color. It's not the darkest green just yet. So I might create a little bit of a highlight over here too, shade in just a little bit where they overlap to make that green color pop a little bit. Starting to get a little bit greener. All right, and then I'm gonna come in with my darkest green, and I'm gonna kind of come across from the top. I'm gonna kind of go underneath where I have all of those layers. And then I'm gonna go back in with my white as well. Kind of create some highlight over here. Really, I guess it'd be a low light. Okay, so then you're gonna kind of create that green of those trees. Along the edges of the tree to make it pop just like the other. You're gonna go in with like either a blue or a black or something to kind of create a little bit of a shadow. So darkest at the edge of the tree, and then it gets lighter as it gets farther away. Okay, and I'm gonna do that off camera too, just so I can do it without taking all your time up. On the door, I'm gonna get you started on the door too, and then kind of come back and point some things out. So my door, it's gonna be kind of an orangish red, really, really bright. I'm also going to create a wreath on my door, so I'm gonna do that with my white. I'm gonna make a circle inside of a circle, almost looks like a lifesaver. And then to create my bow, I'm just gonna make another circle and a circle, and then two kind of messy ends of my bow coming out from the bottom. I'm gonna add some shading in that, and then I'll come back in just a minute and show you how to shade kind of all along the bottom of the tree, or of the bottom part of the house here. And then we'll be done, guys. We'll be ready to set it up and sneak it into Miss Vineyard's room for our gingerbread house. I have added in a lot more details from far away. You can see my white of my icing is really starting to pop. Guess what I did? I did just a little bit of a black shadow along the top where it was darkest at the edge, and then I faded out. I'm still using my super kind of flat broken crayon, so you can still do it even with the broken crayon. See up close how I just added a little bit of a shadow along the edges at the top, and up close you can see all of my lines. It looks like I scribbled. I kind of did, but far away it really helps the top of your gingerbread house start to pop. Now, the only other thing that I forgot on here is I need to add some details at the bottom to kind of go and match with the top. So I'm just gonna add in some of my little circles closer together and more of them along the edges. So there's just gonna be a few, and then, you know, just a couple here in the tiny little spots that still show up. Get the last color here, one of my favorite blues, just to add that texture to the bottom as well. And then on my sample, there are some little lines coming off of this side, kind of like the line texture we did up at the top. You can also see, one other thing to point out is that on my trees, I did do a blue shadow underneath the white a little bit to make those different branches pop again too. But here you go, guys, here it is, it's done. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to stand mine up, hopefully it stands, and I'm gonna set it out on Miss Vineyard's table for her tomorrow so that she has a little gingerbread house when she and Mrs. Beam are teaching their math lesson. Here's your gingerbread house. You can make it without food. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Stay tuned. Sure, there's more fun stuff up those 5th grade teachers' sleeves. Have a great day. See ya.